founding fathers of the United States stand as towering figures in history. They were tasked with a monumental challenge, crafting a system of governance for a fledgling nation yearning for liberty and autonomy. This group of statesmen, revolutionaries, and intellectuals, deeply divided on many fronts, engaged in fierce debates that would shape the destiny of the United States. Their disagreements, often bitter and personal, were not mere squabbles over power. They were fundamental clashes about the nature of democracy, the limits of government, and the rights of citizens. These were not men who shied away from confrontation. They were, after all, revolutionaries who had just waged a successful war against the world's most powerful empire. They were accustomed to fighting for their beliefs, and the Constitutional Convention of 1787 was their battleground for the soul of the new nation. The Articles of Confederation, the nation's first attempt at self-governance, had proven too weak to effectively manage the newly independent states. The Founding Fathers, recognizing the urgency of the situation, convened in Philadelphia with a shared goal to create a more perfect union. Section 2. A Spectrum of Visions, from Confederation to Federation. The chasm between these two camps was wide. The advocates of a strong central government pointed to the failures of the Articles of Confederation as evidence that a loose confederation of states was simply not viable. They argued that the lack of a strong national currency, the inability to regulate interstate commerce, and the weakness of the federal government in dealing with foreign powers had brought the nation to the brink of collapse. They believed that only a strong national government, with the power to tax, raise an army, and enforce its laws uniformly across all states, could ensure the survival and prosperity of the young republic. Those who favored states' rights countered that the revolution had been fought precisely to escape the tyranny of a distant and overbearing central government. They feared that a powerful federal government would inevitably encroach upon the liberties of individual citizens and strip states of their autonomy. They argued that the diversity and vastness of the American continent made a centralized system of governance impractical and undesirable. They believed that local matters were best handled by local governments, closer to the people and more responsive to their needs. These were not abstract theoretical debates. They were deeply personal and often heated exchanges, fueled by a shared history of struggle and sacrifice. The delegates at the Constitutional Convention were acutely aware that they were not just drafting a document, they were forging the destiny of a nation. Their words, their compromises, their very disagreements would have profound implications for generations to come. The debates often spilled out of the convention hall and into the taverns and coffee houses of Philadelphia. Newspapers, pamphlets, and broadsides carried the arguments of both sides to a public eager to follow the proceedings. The fate of the nation hung in the balance, and the American people watched with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation as their representatives grappled with the fundamental questions of governance. Section 3. The Virginia Plan, a blueprint for strong national governance. One of the most pivotal moments in the Constitutional Convention came with the presentation of the Virginia Plan, a proposal largely crafted by James Madison. This plan, favored by the delegates from the larger states, called for a radical departure from the existing system of governance under the Articles of Confederation. It proposed a bicameral legislature with representation in both houses based on population, effectively giving more populous states greater influence in the national government. The Virginia Plan also called for a strong executive branch headed by a president, a concept that was novel at the time. The president would have the power to veto legislation, command the armed forces, and appoint federal officials, subject to the advice and consent of the Senate. This proposal reflected the belief that a strong executive was necessary to provide effective leadership and ensure national unity. Furthermore, the Virginia Plan proposed the establishment of a national judiciary with the power to invalidate state laws that conflicted with the Constitution. This provision, which would later become the basis for the principle of judicial review, aimed to establish the supremacy of federal law and prevent states from undermining the authority of the national government. The Virginia Plan, in essence, laid the groundwork for a powerful central government with the capacity to effectively govern a large and diverse nation. However, the plan was met with immediate opposition from delegates representing smaller states, who feared that their interests would be marginalized under such a system. They argued that the Virginia Plan would effectively render smaller states powerless and create a new form of tyranny, this time by a majority of states rather than a distant monarch. The delegates from smaller states viewed the Virginia Plan as an attempt by the larger states to consolidate their power and impose their will on the rest of the nation. Section 4, the New Jersey Plan, defending the sovereignty of states. In response to the Virginia Plan, William Paterson of New Jersey presented an alternative proposal that came to be known as the New Jersey Plan. This plan, supported by the smaller states, sought to preserve the basic structure of governance under the Articles of Confederation, with some modifications. It proposed a unicameral legislature in which each state, regardless of size or population, would have equal representation. This arrangement, they argued, was the only way to ensure that the interests of smaller states were not trampled upon by larger ones. The New Jersey Plan also sought to strengthen the powers of the national government in certain areas, such as the ability to tax and regulate commerce, but it stopped far short of the sweeping changes proposed by the Virginia Plan. The delegates who supported the New Jersey Plan believed that the best way to preserve liberty was to limit the power of the national government and maintain a significant degree of autonomy for individual states. The New Jersey Plan represented a stark contrast to the vision put forth by the Virginia Plan. While both plans acknowledged the need for a stronger national government than what existed under the Articles of Confederation, they differed dramatically in their approach to achieving that goal. The Virginia Plan aimed to create a more centralized system of governance, while the New Jersey Plan sought to maintain a balance of power between the national government and the states. The debate between these two plans brought to the forefront the fundamental tensions that existed between the desire for national unity and the preservation of states' rights. The delegates at the Constitutional Convention were caught in a delicate balancing act, trying to create a system of governance that was both strong enough to be effective and limited enough to prevent tyranny. The fate of the nation hung in the balance as these two opposing visions for the future of the United States clashed in the heated debates of the Constitutional Convention.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light